The movie starts with Julia on the boat with her family, and we know that they are going on a trip to celebrate their son Ben's birthday, and they are all happy and enjoying the trip, and Julia reports that she is going down to the water to swim, and after a while Julia feels that something strange is happening, so she stays around her, but she doesn't find anything, and she goes under the water and finds that everything is normal, so she relaxes and continues swimming, and suddenly she finds the water pulling her back forcefully, and she finds herself getting away from the boat, so she wants to swim with all her strength to get back to the boat quickly, but the current is very strong, so she lines them up to save her, and Tom hears her voice and goes to look at her and Petra when he sees her, and she is drowning, so he moves the boat quickly and approaches from it. And then he jumps into the water and is able to save her, and when Julia goes out to the boat, she tells them that she suddenly felt something strange pulling her back, but she doesn't know what this thing is, so Tom gives it to her and tells them that if any of them wants to go down the water, he should inform them before he goes down, and show them also that none of them should swim far from the boat. This is because the ocean is full of dangers and could drown him, and at night they celebrate Ben's birthday, and each one of them gets a gift, and Tom brings Ben a laptop, so Ben is very ugly and thanks him. As for Cassie, she brings him a scary mask so he can use it on Halloween, and Julie gets her gift, which is a bracelet, and gives it to Ben and tells him that the A&D brings good luck, and then Cassie goes to talk with her lover Adam, and she tells him that the trip is very boring and that she is waiting for it to end so she can return to the city, and suddenly a lot of clouds appear in the sky behind Adam, so Adam is surprised too, and he wants to know what caused these clouds to appear, but the connection is suddenly cut off, and Cassie does not know how to call him again, so she loves and tells them what happened. But suddenly they hear a strange sound around them, so they all go up to the deck of the ship and turn on the flashlight, and at that moment they are surprised when they find a large group of whales in front of them, and at this moment a whale appears walking from under the ship, and after it is sure to move, Tom decides to go down and look at the body of the ship in order to know if the whale caused damage to the ship or not, and after a while Tom goes up to the surface of the water, and it appears that he is injured on his shoulder, and tells them that one of the ship's propellers was broken, in addition to the fact that the rest of the propellers were badly damaged. He also tells them that he felt a large body moving behind him, and when he tried to turn around to see what the body was, he was injured by the propeller, and that's why he couldn't distinguish what was moving behind him. After that, Julia sits and stitches his wound and asks him if he can fix the ship's propellers that were broken. So Tom is convinced that this is a difficult thing and that they have no other than to ask for help, and at this moment, Cassie goes up to the highest place in the ship and tries to get a signal from her phone so that she can call Adam and check on him. But she fails. As for Julia, she starts using the walkie and tries to ask for help, but she doesn't find anyone answering her at all, and at that time, Tom tries to moves with the ship, but the ship does not move from its place in Beirut to Julia and takes the radio from her and keeps trying more than once to reach someone and answer them, but to no avail. He then stays with Julia to reassure her and tells her that they have food and drink that will be enough for 4 days until they find someone to answer them and makes them happy. He tells her that they are on the way to the cargo ships and that no ships will pass this way for days. While they are talking, the radar device gives them a signal that there is a body approaching them. They all get scared and go to the deck of the ship to see what this body is, and they believe it when they see a burning body that falls from the sky and believes it on the surface of the water. They are all surprised and do not know what it is. This body suddenly falls from the sky, a burning body, and it lands next to the ship, and then a strong tremor occurs in the center, and then Tom tries to move the ship to get away from this place, but the engine breaks down, and then he notices that there is smoke. He goes out of the engine room, so Tom opens the door of the room. And he realizes that the engine is burning, and then a severe storm occurs, so they all run and uses the cap. And he closes all the doors and windows to protect themselves, but the ship shakes violently because of the storm. And because of this tremor he falls to the ground. So they all run to check on him, and he reassures when they find that his injury is minor, and then he moves quickly and brings them the protective jackets to wear them, but suddenly he starts to get tired. All of them, and we find Julia bleeding from her nostrils. And Cassie, she prefers to come back, and Tom feels a shock in his brain, and the next day Julia and her family are asleep, and when they wake up from sleep, he is shocked when they find the ship destroyed, but the biggest shock is when they discover that the ocean suddenly disappeared, in addition to the fact that the ship is stopped on a high hill in the middle of the mountains, and none of them are able to comprehend that the ocean could disappear that easily. So Cass likes to catch a signal on her phone but fails, while Ben goes to his father and asks them what they will do now. So Tom tells him that there are definitely other people besides them around them, and that he will try to communicate with them until they respond to him. So Ben tells him that he trusts him, and they think that he always says that every problem has a solution, and at that time Tom is surprised when he looks at the compass he has and says to his family that there is something abnormal, and this is because the direction north points to south and south points to north. And Tom's secret is that what is happening is that the poles reversed, and the last time this phenomenon happened was more than 700,000 years ago. So he tells where the ocean is. He tells Tom that the ocean moved to land and certainly drowned all the cities in it. Here, Cassie is shocked because this means that her lover Adam might have died, and she enters the boat and she starts crying. So Julia enters after her to calm her down and reassure him, and then Ben ties his birthday balloons and flies in the sky, and when his father and mother see him, he tells them that this is so that if anyone is alive, he can see the balloons, Dee, and come to them. And then Tom enters the boat and is able to operate the wireless device and keeps sending messages SOS to anyone he doesn't find anyone to answer him. And then he knows that this person's name is now Juan. He was on a sea trip underwater in a submarine. So Tom sells himself to him and tells him that he is an oceanographer and that his wife works as a doctor, and if anyone is injured she can treat him, but he tells him that his colleagues with him died and that he is fine and there are no injuries, but they warn him, and he tells him that the magnetic poles of planet Earth have reversed, but there are signs that say that these poles will return to print again within a week, and he asks him to take his family and go to a high place and settle there, because when the sea returns to its place it will return with a new strength and there will be a danger to their lives. At that time Tom and Julia fear for their children. So he goes out. They have a place to go to him and hide in his submarine, because the submarine will be safer than any other place, but now tells them that he doesn't have, except for 2 places in the submarine in his house, that he takes Cassie with him. So now agrees and gives them the coordinates of the place he is in, and Tom knows at that time the distance between them will take 3 days, so that they can reach him. So now tells them that he will stay next to the radio if they need anything from him, and then Tom tells Julia that they need to sleep well because they will start their journey the next day, and the day after. Before they move, Tom sees someone coming to them with his dog in Beirut to him quickly, and takes a bottle of water with him, and at that time Julia sees him and goes after him, and when Tom reaches this person, I give him water, so I take it from him. And he drinks it all, but then he hits Tom with the bottle in his face and he falls to the ground, so I start too. Julia runs to him to save him, but the person has a primitive spear that he made himself, and grabs it and kills it. So Julia becomes from the intensity of terror and tries to run. to escape, but the man throws a spear at her, but the spear does not reach her and drags her only by her shoulder, so Julia is on her way until she enters the boat, and when Cassie senses her, she runs toward her quickly, she and Ben, and they all enter the boat, and Julia closes the door on them, and then she hides Ben and Cassie so that the person does not see them and kills them. She gives Cassie the signal gun to defend herself with it if anything happens to her. And then she gets treated. Julia wounds her and holds a knife to defend herself with it. At this moment, the unknown person reaches the boat and keeps pushing the door until he can open it and enters looking for them. When he sees food, he keeps eating it. It appears that he wants to finish off anyone living on the boat. This is so that he can take over the food and drink for himself alone, so he keeps looking for them everywhere. At this time, Julia is able to get out through an opening in the boat's body. She doesn't want me to see her. When she moves from her place, the dog sees her and attacks her and falls to the ground, but Julia hits him with the knife and dies. At that moment, this person is on the deck of the boat. He gets very tired when he sees the dog dead in front of him. As for Julia, she gets wet from the other side and is able to enter the boat again, but this person attacks her and hits her hard and falls to the land. And then he chokes and Beck is about to kill her, and at that moment Cassie appears and hits this person with a shot from a signal gun and he falls to the ground. And a fire breaks out in the boat, so she falls and takes with her what she can of food and drink. And after that she and her children get out of the boat. They go to his wife and they keep crying. At that time Julia reacts that this person is still alive and gets out of the boat, so she takes her children. And they run quickly before he catches up with them. And Julia keeps running with her children until they move away a little, and then they sit down to rest, and Julia takes out the map to know the location of the submarine, so Cass says that the balloons are what led the killer to their location, so he lays down and feels guilty and refuses to talk to anyone, but Julia tells him that he is not guilty for what happened and keeps talking to him until his nerves calm down, and then they continue walking. And the places around him are full of magic, and it appears that there are many dead fish because of the disappearance of the ocean, and suddenly Julia sees the person coming after them. Fabta took her children and they kept running with all their might until they could get a long distance away from him. At that moment, Julia discovers that Ben is tired and stubborn, so Fav sits down to rest and gives him water to drink, but she is shocked when she finds the water in the bottle is finished, so Cassie tells her that she forgot the bottle is open. Julia stops and keeps yelling at her, and tells her that they might die because of the lack of water. Cassie gets tired of her words and tells her that they will die anyway, and she knows that she will not be able to save them from all the dangers around them. So, Julia loses her temper and keeps screaming, but she is able to control herself and takes her children. They continue on their way and keep walking until they find a plane in front of them. Julia opens the door of the plane and they go in and sit in it. After that, Julia gives her children food and asks them to sleep after they eat. Cassie sees her holding a picture of all of them. Julia is very sad because of his death. Cassie tells her that she does not believe that she will not see him again and asks her to tell her about the first time she met her father. Julia loves him and is affected that at the time, she was 22 years old and was being beaten in the hospital. At the time, she came to the hospital and his colleague who had an accident was with him. Julia says that Tom admired him from the first time he saw her. After 2 days, he was surprised by him waiting for her outside the hospital with Ward. She got to know him and they became engaged until one day, Tom came to travel for work and told her that he would not travel. But when she goes with him and tells Julian this step, it was hard for her at the time because she will leave her job. and go to another place to start from the beginning. And then Tom said his famous sentence to her, which is, that every problem has a solution, and then they all sleep. And Cassie wakes up to go take a shower, and at that moment, this person appears and he came to her to kill her, but Julia comes from behind him and appears with the knife, and he falls on the ground and she falls on him. And she keeps hitting him until she kills him, so she loves calms her down, and they go to sleep in the plane, and the next day they get out of the plane to continue their trip, but they are surprised by the sight of the person's body. And it appears that she was attacked by a wild animal, and at that moment Julia warns her children and tells them that they will face something dangerous that they do not know what it is. Then they walk for a long time, until he saw a puddle of water in front of him. He ran on it and puts his face in it to drink but a cup. And Julia quickly tries to attack him and prevents him from doing so. Then Julia shouts at him and tells him that it is him. This is why he might get sick and really get tired afterward. Along, Julia and Cassie help him walk, until they reach a place where there are chairs. Many of them sat on a chair to rest. As for Cassie, Saad's mother and they made a small hut of chairs to sit in, and then Julia takes out an injection from her bag and checks Ben with it so that his condition improves and he can walk on his feet, and then they all sleep but Julia wake up after a while, and this is because she heard a strange sound around them, and when she goes outside she hears the sound approaching them. So she arranges their sleep and they all run out. And then they find in front of them an overturned cargo ship. And many containers have fallen from it, and they see also 3 of the ship's workers, so they run quickly to them to ask for help from them. But the workers are afraid of them and go inside. The container locks itself in, so Saad, Julia, her children go upstairs the container, and here appears a large group of crabs and hurts Julia in her legs before she goes up on the container, and at the same time the crabs enter the container through a small opening, and there are a crowd on the 3 workers in it, and the workers keep hitting them with fire, but the crabs are large in number and they crowd them and kill them all. And at this time Julia and her children are sitting on top of the container, and she is patting her legs, but she gets tired and sings to her, and after a while she wakes up because of a severe sandstorm, so she wakes up quickly and keeps looking for her children, and Cassie comes to her voice and prepares. And she is happy that she woke up and became better. And then Julia takes them and they enter the container to protect themselves from the storm. And at that time Julia uses gunpowder bullets, the one you find her, and cauterize her wound and then tie her up. Her legs are fine so that the wound does not become infected at that time. She asks Ben and Cass to take any weapons. They see it and then they drink the water. They find her inside the container, and then Julia goes rotate on a wireless device inside the container. The second is that she can really find a device. She calls Nawi and tells him everything that happened. Then he tells her that he intends to be exposed to the crab attack last night, and he knows she must go to him quickly, and this is because the ocean, it is moving faster than expected, even though it is. He will reach the place within a few hours, she says. Julia told him that the map was lost and it was not. She knows how to reach him, and he comes out intending for her to look to the sky, and then he shoots a shot into the sky from signal pistol. As soon as Julia and her children see the shot, they are able to determine its location and move towards it quickly and walk in the middle of a mountain passage, and suddenly a storm occurs. And the world is raining, and because of the rain the rocks move from their place and fall on them, and at that moment Julia pushes her children away to protect them, and the rocks fall on her and she imagines her legs and she does not move. In addition to that, there is a large rock that falls between her and her children and blocks the road between them and keeps Cassie wailing on Julia and asking her to bear herself and climb the rocks, but Julia is not able to move from the severity of the pain and screams at Cassie and tells her to take Ben and go to the submarine and it will happen, and there is no other solution in front of Cassie. so she takes her brother Ben and they move quickly on their way to they don't reach the submarine, and there is a cup that hits the glass. Because he intends to go out to them but intends to be outside the submarine originally and philosophizes from every part of his body, and he intends to know that he is going to die because of his injury, and he knows that there are only minutes ahead of them before the ocean returns. Then, Cup quickly runs to get her mother. At this moment, Julia's condition improves a little bit, but she finds a large number of crabs approaching her. She grabs the weapon and shoots them. Fire until the bullets run out, at which time Julia collapses and surrenders to her fate, but suddenly, Cassie appears and extends her hands to help her, so Julia gathers all her strength and runs away until Cassie grabs her hands and is able to save her, and then they run at full speed. They hurry to reach the submarine, and the crabs are coming after them, but Cassie and Julia reach the submarine before them and they go out above it, and Ben keeps shooting at the crabs to prevent them from reaching him, and then Julia takes the gun from him and asks him to go inside the submarine, and Julia continues to fire on the crabs and then enters the submarine and closes the door, and at that moment they see the ocean approaching them very quickly, so they sit in their places and quickly raise their belts, and because of the pressure of the water they all get tired and they lose consciousness, and when Julia wakes up her children wake up and looks at them, and Julia notices that they are not in the water, so she starts to get out her and her children from the submarine and between the nebulae from the view in front of them, and this is because they remain themselves in a city that was completely destroyed and there are no people in it, and the movie ends. If you like the video, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. The movie. Peace.